Ginga Ginga.
Hello everybody, Infinite Shinjo here, and welcome back to episode 39 of Let's Talk Anime. I have 3 suggestions here, given from you guys, so I'm not going to waste any time and get right into it. So up first is Persona 5 the animation, and I don't remember who wanted me to watch this, but honestly, there's not much I can say. I haven't played the games myself, so I'm not too familiar with the series on that front, and the anime just honestly confused me. It was still a pretty good episode, I would say. I really liked the art style, but just like, it really makes a difference when you watch something based off of a video game, or anything to that matter, if you actually know what the game's about, so you have a better idea of how the story is going to go here. But for someone like me, I haven't played any of the games. I just know a couple of references that are just thrown around, so I wasn't too sure what I was getting myself into, and to be honest, I still don't know. And at the same time, I'm not sure if the series itself is following the storyline of the games. If it is, I haven't played the games, so I don't know what's going to happen, and if it isn't, why not? But in short, I would say it's a good first episode, but nothing big enough to get me to want to watch more. I only saw the first episode. Everybody has that one thing that they like, and just Persona 5 didn't really click with me. But coming up next is one that a lot of people are probably looking forward to me talking about, because it's one of those big hot topics talking about in anime right now. And that is The God of High School. So before I get into what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it, there are a couple of things I want to discuss. First of all, I only watched the first episode because, just like Tower of God, I plan to watch the full series when it's fully complete. And on that note, if I accidentally call this Tower of God when I'm recording this, that's my mistake, but they're pretty similar. They're both based off of manhwa, they both have God in their title, and they're both sort of semi-shonen. So, it's not crazy that I'll make a mistake like that, so just in case I do. And one more thing that I want to bring up before I get into my pros is, why is everybody in love with this OP? I will admit that it's catchy, but just like me myself, I don't really see the appeal in it. I guess it's just like when I discussed Tower of God that I like the ED more than the OP, and the same situation is here. But to start off the pros, let me throw out the obvious fact that the animation is super clean. Like, even when Mori's riding his bike at the start, that animation looks pretty crisp. The other thing that I liked, and it's probably not gonna be something that other people talk about, the comedy in this show is just so stupid that I love it. They literally use the same joke of speed up, slow down twice in the first episode. Once when Mori is thinking back to the old woman that got her purse stolen, they go through a whole flashback but they speed it up. And then when Mira got hit by the bike later on, they do a slow down. And then when Mori catches Mira up on what's going on with the thief, they do the whole speed up thing again. It's one of those things where I didn't think that I would like it, but the comedy in this is pretty dumb, but I love it at the same time. I also like a lot of the OST. I'm not sure if people bring up the OST, but when Mori is chasing after that thief before the tournament even starts, it just has that vibe of psychedelic soul jam from Soul Eater, for example, if you know what that soundtrack sounds like. But obviously the stuff like, oh, it's a shonen, oh, it's a tournament arc, everybody loves that too. But at the same time, I haven't seen enough of it to make a full judgment on that. I'm down for it, but if the whole thing is a tournament, I'm not sure how they're going to do it for 12, 13 episodes. Although I guess they did do it with Dragon Ball Super. But the final thing that I really liked is when they went to the first commercial break, I love how they were all riding on the bike and it was all in 8-bit style. I love that. That was so cool. So now for the cons. And you might be thinking, okay, what are you going to come up with for a con? Because this show is pretty flawless. And this is probably just a super nitpick on my part. But I know that Crunchyroll is sponsoring this anime, but they just had to make it super obvious. Like, I don't know how it goes later down in the episodes, but when they show the scene of the nurses before the tournament even starts, they literally have Crunchyroll logos all in the background pasted everywhere. And it's just like, okay, I get it. Crunchyroll sponsored this, so they have to make it known that Crunchyroll sponsored it. But at the same time, when you have like 100 little Crunchyrolls all in the background there, it's kind of jarring. Especially since Crunchyroll is the only legitimate way to watch it anyway. You're watching it on Crunchyroll, and then you see Crunchyroll in the background, so it's a Crunchyrollception. But that's probably just like a business decision that they have to use the Crunchyroll logo in an episode, or maybe once per episode, so they figured that was the best way to include it. So as a business decision, it makes sense, but from an anime watching perspective, it's just kind of jarring. And just like what I already mentioned, this is probably just from a design aspect, but why does everybody have red noses and red ears on the top? It just looks kind of weird to me. But at the same time, that might be the charm of God of High School, where it just looks that weird enough that you know what show it's from. The final thing that I'll say, and this is probably just my bias from watching so many different anime, I'm honestly not the biggest fan of Mori, just from what I've seen in this first episode. I mean, it's pretty clear that he's the shonen protagonist, as you do, and something happened with his grandpa. His grandpa wants him to make friends. I can only assume his grandpa's dead, because I would assume if they're going to play this super straight, that he's going to reveal later, my grandfather died, but his last wish was for me to make friends, and now I'm going to make friends. But at the same time, with all that being said, does he have to be a generic shonen protagonist? Like, I even wrote down in my notes, there are characters like Gon and, I guess Edward Elric to an extent, but more Gon, where the first episode, Mori wakes up, he's late, he's literally running out the door, getting on his bike, he almost runs into somebody, and he just takes up the whole screen with him screaming, and it's just like, I get you're a shonen protagonist, but do you have to be the loud, kind of obnoxious one? Because Gon's not really that way, and I like him as a much better character. But these are only my thoughts from the first episode. He might develop into a better character that I like more, but just from watching the first episode, Mori just seems like a generic character where he's just the generic, always shouting protagonist that just is plaguing everywhere. Speaking of plaguing everywhere, I actually didn't mean for this to be a segue, but the final anime is Gibiate. I think that's how it's pronounced. I know that I've heard them mention it in the first episode, and I'm assuming it's pronounced like Gibiate. That's what I'm going to pronounce it as regardless. But to start, this anime is kind of strange. I knew about it because of multiple videos talking about this with the seasonal lineup, and I already wasn't going into it with good expectations because it's literally about a virus that plagues all of Tokyo. So it's kind of hitting a bit close to home with everything going on. And it's weird because you would think with anime, they go months ahead of time deciding when are we going to release this. So it's one of those things where you're wondering, did they release this with everything going on in the real world? Or was it just a coincidence? But essentially the show's about two samurai from the 1600s go to 2030s Tokyo to fight a virus. The main reason I remember that is because I wrote it down, because it's honestly kind of forgettable. I watched the first episode and there wasn't really anything that stood out to me that was like, wow, this is amazing. But just like, let me get into the cons first, because there aren't many cons or pros. But just overall, the show's kind of boring, honestly. Like, okay, the samurais come to the real world, or the recent world, fight this virus, get backstory and whatever, and okay, we learn about the monsters. They come out at dark, so their little base that they have the lights on so the monsters don't attack them or whatever. But just like, I was sitting there watching the episode, and I'm just like, how long are we into this? is this over yet? Because it's just kind of boring, in all honesty. And I normally don't say an anime is kind of boring, but just like, going into this episode, I knew that the expectations weren't great anyway, but then like, the fight scenes are kind of just like, bland. Like, there's not really any substance to them for me. And the other con, and this is the main reason that I'm just kind of on this show, it's just like, okay, I already told you the premise. Two samurais travel 400 years in the future, and they're just like, okay, we're in 2030 now. It's like, what? You literally traveled over 400 years in the future, and you don't even get any sort of culture shock, like, what is this world? What are these phones? What is everything going on here? Like, they're just gonna accept, okay, we're in the future now. Okay. Because, like, I'm not a genius. I know that. But at the same time, you would think them traveling that far into the future, they would have a bigger reaction than, oh, we're in the future. And at the same time, for the people of that time, they're just easy to accept, oh, okay, samurai are here. Now, granted, I think their reaction is, okay, well, we have a virus going on, so it's not crazy to think that samurai are here as well. Like, if they would have kind of explained why exactly the samurai are here, then it would make more sense. But, like, all I can gather, the two samurai are on a boat, and they just poof. That's it. The one pro that I will give, the monster designs look so freaky that I love them. The CG really helps with that. But just like, the monster designs alone aren't enough for me to watch this show because it's just about nothing. I know the show actually has a plot about a virus and monsters going on or whatever, but just like, this show's kind of boring, in all honesty. And the only reason that it's really relevant is because it's talking about a virus, and a virus is essentially going on in the real world. Not to this big extreme, hopefully not by the time this video comes out, but just like, the only reason it's relevant is because it's tackling the similar subject that this anime is. But just like, I can't get across how boring this anime is. It's just, why? And the worst part about it, and this probably isn't a major thing to anybody beside me, but just like, it's bland enough already with the story, but they couldn't even hire somebody to sing the opening. It's literally just an instrumental. It's almost like nobody wanted to be a part of this anime. But at the same time, I will say that anybody that is involved in this anime, I'm not belittling you, but in all honesty, this anime is just kind of boring. But at the same time, I know that for people in the industry, especially the actors and actresses in this show, they gotta get paid somehow, but just like, not from this. This anime is just boring. But those are my thoughts on all three of those anime. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. And if you have any other suggestions for Let's Talk Anime, leave them down in the comment section as well. And I will see you in the next episode. Momentai.